This is the story of one of the greatest men to ever walk the face of this earth. His legacy dwarfs that of any mere mortal and will undoubtedly continue to be retold for generations to come. But first, a little context. During my senior summer, I went to the mall with a couple of friends. Because none of their parents wanted to buy them a car, and I had convinced my parents that I was far too incompetent to drive anything more complicated than a golf cart, we had to Uber and walk everywhere. The visit to the mall itself was fairly uninteresting. We went into stores and talked loudly about how their products were terrible, bought fruits because those were the only things we could afford, and sat around eating bananas at tables meant for toddlers. At some point, two guys went off to go buy a desk fan at a certain unnamed store because they didn't have anything better to do. After they returned and we finished our bananas, we opened the box and discovered that the fan was way smaller than it had been advertised. So we went back to the store to return the thing. At the end of the return process, the kind old lady behind the desk asked if we'd like a refund or store credit, to which the guy who had bought the fan absentmindedly responded, "Refund. It's not like you guys are going to be open for much longer anyway." I hope that lady's doing okay. When we finished driving patrons away from stores with our personalities and obnoxiously loud voices, we called Ubers to go back to a friend's house. Because our group was so large, we split up for this part. The first half quickly got into a Toyota that looked old enough to have fought in the Civil War and disappeared in a cloud of toxic smoke. As my half continued loitering and lowering the property value of the surrounding space, we noticed that our Uber was really late. After examining the app to see where our driver was, we discovered Dave. Driving his Dodge Durango with no profile picture or other identifying information besides his first name, Dave was sitting at a left turn nearly 10 miles away. We watched him for about 10 minutes, but he never moved. Sensing a potential laugh, we decided not to cancel and went back into the mall to be public nuisances. At our next inspection of his progress some 20 minutes later, he was moving again. We let out a cheer that probably sounded more like a screech and anxiously watched as he drove on for almost an entire mile, before coming to a stop at an intersection waiting for another left turn. He continued to sit there for another 10 minutes before finally making the turn and getting stuck at, you guessed it, another left turn. This process repeated itself for nearly an hour and a half until Dave got within a half mile of us and sat stuck at the final left turn. We timed how long it would take for him to conquer this final obstacle, but as the clock ticked past the 16-minute mark, Dave abruptly canceled. Had he canceled earlier, we might have laughed it off and ordered another Uber, but we were now far too emotionally invested. We had spent so much time with him that he felt just like one of us. His struggles and victories were as much his as they were ours. So when we saw his icon abruptly disappear from the map, we felt like parents who had just lost their child. We tried contacting him through the app, finding him on a Yellow Pages book, and even running to his last location to see if he needed assistance. But it was all no use. Dave had entirely disappeared from the face of the earth, and it was all our fault for making him drive 15 miles. He had sacrificed himself to save not just us, but all of humanity. I have no clue what he was saving us from, maybe getting home, but that's not important. When we eventually got into another Uber to meet the others, it was with heavy hearts and hung heads. Only the sound of an ambulance screeching past caused us to look up and solemnly raise our hands in a salute to our fallen brother.
Like or sub or I'll end up like Dave.